Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another UFC fight prediction video. In this video, I'll be predicting the full card of fights for UFC Fight Night, Taira versus Park. So yeah, I already predicted pretty much every single fight on this card, but the main event changed and another fight changed, but most importantly, the main event changed. So I said when the main event changed, I will do the prediction video over again, and the main event changed. So I'm doing the main event, I'm doing the whole video over again, including the two updates. So yeah. But now, yeah, full card predictions, now to the first fight on the card. And I'll run through it all again. It might be a little bit quicker than usual, but yeah, because I already done it, but still gonna go through all the picks. But anyway, first card on the fight, yeah, first fight on the card, first card on the fight. First fight on the card, we have in the featherweight division, we got Bashi versus Yannis. And how do I feel about this one right here? I'm going average confidence, Bashi to beat Yannis. I just like Bashi has fought better competition on the regional scene, and especially in the UFC. I just think his wrestling and his pace is going to be too much for Yannis. I think Yannis is going to make it a competitive scrap, but I just think Bashi grinds him down and gets a second round submission over Yannis. But yeah, I think Yannis is going to be competitive, but I think Bashi is just going to be, that experience can come through for Bashi. And also Yannis is, really his best competition has been like a former bantamweight. I think he fought primarily at bantamweight. Whereas like the size won't be that big. I actually was name might look a little bit bigger, but Bashi has been fighting bigger opponents. Even though again I'm getting too deep into it, but either way, yeah. The main thing is the level of competition. That's the big difference: skill level and level of competition, and that's all on Bashi's side. And also the fact that Bashi has been training, whereas Yannis is just training for a fight versus a guy that's coming in there accepting short notice fights, and that just typically your first fight in UFC. And coming in not fully prepared, it's just not a recipe for success. Along with Bashi already having all other advantages, or all key advantages here. And I think, yeah, Bashi gets the second round submission over Yannis. So in this one, I have Bashi via second round submission. And again, average confidence, Bashi. Next fight we have in the women's strawweight division, we got Pierre Rodriguez versus Souza. And how do I feel about this one right here? Women's strawweight division, how I feel about this one right here is I'm going low confidence Pierre Rodriguez to beat Souza. Yeah, low confidence Rodriguez to beat Souza. I think Souza's a solid fighter, but I think Rodriguez will be the bigger fighter. I think she's the more well-rounded fighter, and I think she'll be able to use her grappling to great success against Souza. And I think she beats her by decision here. Souza's definitely live here. Definitely one of the most live underdogs on the card, Souza is, but I just feel like Rodriguez is more well-rounded. And I feel like, yeah, Souza is probably the better striker for sure, but Rodriguez is the better grappler for sure. And you always got to find who can better take advantage of the other's weakness, and I think Rodriguez can better take advantage of Souza's. Like, she just went in there with a solid striker, and she was able to grapple her up. And it's not like Souza has any real great submission ability or any real great grappling ability. I think that Rodriguez should have a pretty strong advantage there and should be able to grapple her up to a decision. Again, I don't think it's going to be an easy fight, but again, I feel like Rodriguez has, the gap between their grappling, which Rodriguez has the advantage in, is bigger than the gap in their striking, which Souza has advantage in. And yes, I think Rodriguez will be able to mix it up, get those takedowns, get that control time, and beat Souza by decision. So in this one, I have Pierre Rodriguez via decision. All right, now to our next fight. We have in the flyweight division, we got Felipe Bunes versus Rafael Estevam. And how do I feel about this one right here? Is I'm going average confidence, Rafael Estevam to beat Felipe Bunes. I just feel like Estevam is the better overall fighter. They're both kind of taller flyweight, but Estevam is also wide. Like, he's very dense and very strong. I feel like he's more durable. I think only advantage I would give Boone is in cardio. I feel like Estevam, and also we haven't really seen Boone go too far either. I feel like Boone's is not the most durable fighter. He might have the better condition because he don't cut nearly as much weight as Estevam. They both cut a lot of weight, but Estevam clearly cuts more weight. Probably the biggest 125 there is currently, or at least top 3 UFC lightweights as far as weight cuts. Not as far as skills, but as far as weight cuts, he's probably at least top 3. So he's a big weight cutter for this weight class. And yeah, I think he can be the better. Well, really not even about being a better. He's definitely the better grappler. I think that's the biggest thing. He's the better grappler. That's where both of their strength lies mostly at. And along with that size, his strike might not be as crisp as Boone's, but I think he'll be able to dish the shots out better and take them better. I feel like Boone's don't take shots very well. I feel like his reactions to getting hit when hitting hard, like, it's almost kind of amateurish is what I'm trying to say. Like, he kind of shells up. He kind of wilts when he gets hit with clean shots. Like, obviously you get hit. Nobody wants to get hit, but some people have bigger reactions or don't respond that well to taking shots. And Bunes is one of those people. He's not among the worst people I've ever seen, but he's not in a good category as far as guys I would say, oh, that guy can take a shot. That guy's tough. I wouldn't say Bunes is like extremely tough at all. I would not put him in that category. He would not come to mind. So I think Rafael Estevam can oppose his size on him. He might not be as clean of a striker, might not. And I'm not even saying he isn't, but I'm saying he might not be the same level of striker Bunes is, might not be. But with his size and pressure, he can land shots and get a response out of Bunes. Then look to, just beat a bigger, stronger man out there, pressure him, get him down, break him down, and I see him submitting him in the second round. So in this one, I have Rafael Estevam via second round submission. Now for our next fight, we have in the middleweight division, we got Rodolfo Vieira versus Tresean Gore. And how do I feel about this one right here? I'm going low confidence, Rodolfo Vieira to beat Tresean Gore. And Gore is one of those guys that, he might surprise you, like, especially in the spot he's in right now, because I'm not really expecting nothing out of him right now. But he does got power. He does got natural athleticism. He did show a lot of toughness in the last fight. And that's a good and bad thing for him, like, because he showed a lot of toughness. He might be able to stick around and land that big shot and put Vieira out for the first time. Could be that. So that's a good sign, that toughness. But it's also bad because he returned very soon, because he did take a lot of damage in his last fight, and that was this year. It wasn't like 2024. It wasn't 2023. It was 2025. He took a lot of damage in his last fight. I think that was around March. So we're in like about to enter August. So it's been some time in between, but not enough time. The amount of damage he took in that fight, you probably would expect him to take, like, or if you were his coach or him, you would have won like a layup fight, maybe 2 layup fights. But nah, you went in there, you're going in with another tough fighter. And also, it's a tough matchup because Vieira is such a great grappler. And Gore is, like, he got power on the stuff. But as far as the UFC wins, they have all been by submissions. I don't think he's going to submit Vieira. And Vieira's been improving in cardio. It's not like It's not like Gore's some cardio machine that's going to throw a lot of volume and be in the face of Vieira. Like, he hasn't shown that ability to do that. He hasn't shown that IQ to do that. When he has shown the ability to do that, he's pretty strong. And if you do get a hold of your neck, he can put you to sleep or put you in a bad predicament and get you out of there. But again, no guy is the level of Vieira. And the only time Vieira has been submitted has been against a guy that's doing very well in Hernandez in the UFC right now and continue to rise at a fast rate in the UFC at an elite level, top of the division. So he ain't just been getting submitted by anybody. He got submitted one time by a guy that's doing extremely well in the weight class, and that was due to exhaustion. So again, Gore's not that cardio machine. Gore got a good punch. He got a good guillotine. I think Vieira has a good chin, and Vieira obviously has a much more extensive ground game. So I don't really see the path to victory for Gore. Again, anything can happen. It's MMA, and Gore does kind of seem like one of those guys that can end up in these wild cards. Like, you can't ever really gauge what he's going to do, especially if he's going there with a guy who's also inconsistent in Vieira. But again, Vieira has been much more consistent, and Gore's path to victory has seemingly in the UFC been by submission, which is just a very hard, that's not likely going to happen. So Vieira is without a doubt the side. And I think Vieira is going to be able to hurt Gore. And I think Gore's return too soon. Mixing the takedowns, mixing the striking, maybe be a little bit hard to get take down early. Struggle with the striking a little bit early. But I think Vieira will be able to take the shots. Or, he'll be able to deal with Gore's power, be able to deal with everything Gore brings. Whether it looks good or rough, I think he'll be able to get through the rough patches if there is rough patches. And eventually when Gore is in rough patches, I don't think Gore is going to be able to swim when it gets rough. And I think once Vieira starts to crack Gore, I see Gore wilting because, again, I think he took too much damage to return too soon. And also, Vieira does hit hard. And then once Gore is hurt, I think Vieira can capitalize either get a TKO or submission. But I'm saying a second-round sub after, second-round clubbing sub for Vieira. So in this one, I have Rodolfo Vieira via second-round submission. All right. Now to our next fight, we have in the bantamweight division, we got Rinya Nakamura versus Nathan Fletcher. And how do I feel about this one right here? I'm going low confidence Rinya Nakamura to beat Nathan Fletcher. So I'm not putting no average or no great confidence in Nakamura here. Fletcher is a well-rounded, scrappy fighter. And he can definitely make this interesting. He's definitely live here. We don't know if Nakamura is going to grow from his loss or decline from his loss. Like, we don't know what type of fighter he is. This is his first loss ever in MMA. So let me just quote, maybe just make sure that's true. You have his first loss ever. And he's coming again, once again, as a big favorite. So you can't be too trustworthy in him. But I will go Rinya Nakamura here. I'll say by decision. Again, I think Fletcher is a tough, scrappy fighter. I think he'll make this competitive. But I got to go with Nakamura. Fletcher, we look at his 2 most recent losses, like his loss in his last fight. He got wrestled up a lot in that fight and controlled. That was a big part. That was really the main reason he lost that last fight. And then his Ultimate Fighter loss, he lost by getting out-grappled. And Nakamura is by far a better wrestler than either of those guys. I'm not saying he's going necessarily a more polished MMA fighter than those guys, but he's definitely a bigger, better wrestler than either of those guys and those guys put together. And I think Nakamura will make the adjustments, you know, to what he did last fight, improve his striking, improve his takedown setups, and I think he'll be able to exploit the wrestling deficiency in Fletcher and the deficiency that a lot of European fighters have, which Fletcher is. He's a European fighter. And Nakamura has very high level wrestling. I think he'll be able to press, get the respect with the power of his punches and be able to use his wrestling ability and his athleticism to explode and get to these takedowns and control Fletcher on the ground and take him to a decision victory. So in this one, I have Rinya Nakamura via decision. Now to our next fight, we have in the middleweight division, we got Nick Klein versus Andre Pulyaev. And how do I feel about this one right here? Is I'm going low confidence Andre Pulyaev to beat Nick Klein. Let me see. Oh yeah, Nick Klein's he's an interesting fighter. I'm not gonna say he's a good fighter. He's an interesting fighter, but I think Pulyaev. I'm gonna say he's better everywhere, but he's better overall. I don't think Klein has exactly super impressive wrestling. I don't think he has super impressive jiu-jitsu, and I think Pulyaev has serviceable wrestling defense and serviceable wrestling offense and serviceable jiu-jitsu. And I think he's a much better striker. I feel like Klein is just like really just a one-dimensional fighter, wrestler grappler of sorts, and again, not a particularly amazing wrestler grappler. And this is literally the fighter that Pulyaev fought essentially on a contender series, and he came in as an underdog to that guy. And the guy, they thought he's gonna do this, thought he's gonna do that, and Pulyaev beat him everywhere. And same way with Klein, like you gotta have better striking to set up your takedowns, and he don't. Like he could go desperado for a takedown, but again, Pulyaev has the skills to negate that. Like you really gotta set your striking up. I mean, set your takedowns up with your strikes when you're fighting guys that know how to deal with your grappling. Again, if you're gonna know with a guy who just has no grappling, yeah, you go there just dive at the ankles, or you're just that elite, you could just dive at the ankles and still probably make it work. But if you're not elite and they're at least serviceable or decent at that, you gotta be able to mix up. And Klein is just to me very one dimensional. And yes, he rocked the guy in the last fight. Oh, that guy is so good or whatever. But that guy is kind of like, he's a great talent, but he's very green. And all reason he caught him with that, because the guy's hands are often down, and he caught him spinning back. Like, Pulyaev, again, he's not no super amazing talent. He's a solid fighter, and he should definitely win here. But yeah, he's not this amazing talent, but he does keep his hands up. He just does, maintain his range very well. He's not a guy just looking for one big shot. Like, so he's not going to really be there for that sloppy spinning backwards, or at least he shouldn't be. Like, anything can happen. But for the most part, it's like he keeps his hands up. He maintains his distance well. So he's not a guy trying to crowd and hit you with a big overhand or a big right hand and, just load up with the power and not too worried about what's coming back. Like, he's worried about what's coming back. He's respecting that, respecting the range. And if anything, he wants to be picking you apart from distance. And if he's inside, he wants to be taking you down. So he's not going to be in that position to be smacked by some spinning backwards, some goofy spinning backwards. So I think, yeah, Pulyaev should be able to break him down, stuff his takedown, outstrike him, pick him apart, leave Klein confused and not able to get any success, then put him away in the second round. So in this one, I have Andre Pulyaev via second round TKO. Now to our next fight, we have in the featherweight division, we got Danny Silva versus Kevin Vallejos. And how do I feel about this one right here? Is I'm going low confidence Kevin Vallejos to beat Danny Silva. So Danny Silva's a solid fighter and all, but I like Kevin Vallejos here a lot. Well, I'm not gonna say a lot because I went low confidence, but I'm saying a lot of nothing. But to the point, low confidence Kevin Vallejos. I ain't gonna beat around the bush too much. I already did this prediction. But yeah, Danny Silva's a solid fighter. I think he has very solid offensive boxing and defensive boxing as well. Good footwork. But I think the main issue with Silva, he has a lot of talent, but the output is just not there. And the urgency is not there, ever. I mean, he did show a lot of volume against Pacheco, but Pacheco's a punching bag. And the fact that Pacheco was able to land 100-plus strikes on you as well is not a good look. But yeah, Vallejos will be able to put that same volume on you, but more volume, much cleaner, much more power, much more technique, and is overall way better. And I just think Nick Silva, when he's in there with decent fighters or better fighters, his output just doesn't really improve. If anything, it declines over the course of the fight. Like, he can show good defense early, but the output, it just kind of wanes, and the defense declines. And I just think Vallejos' work rate is going to be too much. But I think his defense and his skill and probably his wrestling going to try to mix it in to keep himself in the fight. Is going to keep Vallejos honest enough that Vallejos probably not going to be able to put Silva away. But Vallejos still going to put him in a hole with his pressure, his volume, and his work rate. It might even be able to hurt him a couple times in this fight. But yeah, Vallejos' forward pressure, his combination, his work rate, I think it's going to be a little bit too much for Silva. And he's just going to be behind the 8-ball really from the jump and not being able to get back in the fight because his output, again, it just doesn't match. Vallejos has the skill and he has the output. And Silva has the skill as well, but his output is severely lacking, and Vallejos is going to put him in a hole early with his pressure and volume, and Silva just really not going to be able to get out of there. And again, Silva also doesn't have that urgency. So like I don't see him if he's getting down. I don't really see him committing or taking those great risks to make something happen to get a stoppage or to win a round based off damage or positioning. I just don't see it from him. I haven't seen it from none of his fights. And his last fight was way closer than it should have been. But yeah, in this one, I got Kevin Vallejos via decision. Now to our next fight, we have in the welterweight division, we got Neil Magny versus Zaleski. And how do I feel about this one right here is I'm going low confidence, Neil Magny to beat Zaleski. This is like a Neil Magny type fight. Also, Zaleski is coming off a brutal knockout much more recently than Magny. Magny got knocked out, but the level of competition he lost was much better. And it's been like a year, or at least probably like 8 months. Zaleski's coming off a knockout probably like 3-4 months ago, so much more recently. And it's a fight between two older fighters. Like they're both like in their late 30s or touching 40s. Yeah, 37 versus 38. Zaleski's actually older. Zaleski's a solid fighter, Magny's a solid fighter. But Magny does a good job of dealing with guys, again, of similar age or with the styles. Zaleski's very aggressive. But Magny does a good job of tying these guys up, outwork them, wearing them down, and putting the value on them. I think it's going to be a type of fight where Magny's going to be, pretty much be doing him like he did Mayotte. Not the Mayotte fight. Probably going to be more like the Jeff Neal fight, where he's able to tie you up and not allow you to be as explosive and just outwork you and outsmart you and not really get your game working. Like Zaleski's amazing, but I think coming off the knockout, I think he's not going to be as fluid, not as poppy, not as all there as much. And Magny's going to be able to blanket him and just zap his strength and his explosiveness out of him. Again, probably being long, touch him with shots, get him to back up, and then right into the cage, tie him up, and just really zap him of his energy, zap him of his pop, and grind him out to a decision. I still think it's a close fight, probably going to be a split decision type fight, but it's going to be a Neil Magny type fight. It ain't going to be pretty, but he's going to do what needs to be done, and it's going to be his type of fight, and he thrives in his type of fight. And I see him beating Zaleski by decision here. So, in this fight, I got Neil Magny via decision. Now to our next fight, we have in the women's bantamweight division, we got Rosa versus Nora Cornolle. And how do I feel about this one right here? Is I'm going low confidence Rosa to beat Nora Cornolle. I think Nora Cornolle's she's a solid enough fighter. I'll give her that. She's solid enough. But yeah, I don't think her offensive grappling is that impressive, and I think Rosa will be able to deal with that. I think Rosa is the much more serviceable striker. I think she'll be able to chew up the legs of Cornolle. And also, she's younger. She's younger, for better competition, more accomplished. And she's really been, even though somebody lost might say unanimous decision, she really has not been losing by no real big margin. Like, one fight really could have went her way. And her last fight, you can even argue that could have went her way. I went against her both of those fights, but you could argue those both could have went her way. And, yeah. But yeah, I think Rosa is the better striker. I think she could deal with the grappling Cornolle. If anything, she could out-grapple Cornolle, especially after chewing up her leg. So I think she'll be able to out-strike Cornolle. And I think a big factor will be chopping the legs up and not allowing Cornolle to really plant the way she wants to. And chewing those legs won't allow her to drive like she wants to in those takedowns. And also will leave her more susceptible to getting taken down herself. So I think that will all work in big factors to allow Rosa to control this fight the way she wants to control this fight. So in this one, I got Rosa via decision. Now to our next fight. All right, next fight we got in the lightweight division. We got Estevam Ribovics versus Brener. And how do I feel about this one right here? Is I'm going average confidence Estevam Ribovics to beat Brener. And I feel like Brener took a big dive. I think a lot of that team, that shootbox team, momentum is heavily driven by how Charles Oliveira is doing. Like they were looking like they want to tear. Oh, they're the team to watch. And then when Charles Oliveira started losing, the whole team fell apart. And Brener is probably one of the worst cases of that, like the most obvious cases. So he's coming off a couple losses. He took a lot of damage in these recent losses. I think last time he got stopped. So yeah, he's not performing the best right now. And Oliveira is coming off a fight where he just got knocked out. So I expect him to look even worse. Ribovics is showing a good improvement in his wrestling defense. And I feel like that's really where Brener has the advantage in the grappling. So I think Ribovics can stuff the takedowns, pick apart the feet. And Brener at one point was tough. And again, like we start to see Charles Oliveira lose and lose multiple times. Like that toughness, it's not there no more. Like he was able to rally at points in the past. Even the fights that he did lose, like he was fighting to the end and coming close to get his stoppages late. But like now, we start to see him take damage. Like he just checks out. Again, coming off a TKO loss, I don't really expect him to have that same durability already because of the mental. And now it's the physical part as well, been in these wars and now coming off a fight where he got stopped. Yeah, I think Ribovics going to be able to address the grappling, put the belt to butt, pick him apart, and I don't think Brener's going to be able to stick around too long. He's going to try to stick around for a little bit. The wrestling grappling probably going to keep Ribovics, kind of hesitant a little bit for a little bit. But once you start to see Brener start to wilt and start to, wince a little bit, I think Ribovics goes in for the kill. And I think at that point, it's going to really kind of be in the second round, around the midpoint. And I think Ribovics is able to put it together and put Brener out in the second round. So, in this one, I have Estevam Ribovics via second round TKO. All right, now on to our next fight. We have in the lightweight division, we got Chris Duncan versus Rebecki. And how do I feel about this one right here? Is I'm going low confidence Rebecki to beat Chris Duncan. Yeah, I was leaning Duncan early at first, but then I switched to Rebecki. And the main point is, like, Duncan's been looking solid. But when you look at how he's been winning all these fights recently, for the most part, it's been by submission. And Rebecki has a much more extensive and more accomplished background in grappling. That's literally what he does. Like, he might be trying to swing for the fences and stuff now because of knockouts and chewing people's legs up with leg kicks. But at the end of the day, Rebecki is a very solid grappler. He's the bigger, stronger man there, or should be the bigger, stronger man there. And again, that's Duncan's main path to victory has been submission. Like, he hasn't really had a great striking performance when you look at his wins. Like, he did have a moment in a loss that he did rock his opponent. But as far as, like, winning, his wins have, in the fights that he won, he's really been losing the striking department. And he's been either grappling or people have tried to grapple him, then they've been submitted. But either way, his success has been coming in the grappling department. It's kind of hard for me to lean him. It's not hard for me to lean him, but it's hard for me to say he's the side as far as the prediction side. Better side, he might be the side because he's like plus 170. He's probably going to keep rising in that department. And he is extremely live. I think he probably is the more technical striker in my opinion. But again, he hasn't been really having great success with his striking. It's been his grappling. And again, Rebecki is the guy that's been more so grappling. If anything, Duncan at first was more of a striker, but he's lately been tapping into the grappling. Whereas Rebecki has always, primarily been a grappler. I think he has had way more fights. Well, not way more, but about 7 more fights, which could feel like a lot. And I think Duncan's been fighting a lot more recently. But anyway, yeah, Rebecki's been a grappler. I think Duncan will make this competitive scrap. Duncan is very tough, but I think Rebecki will be the bigger, stronger grappler. I think this goes to probably a close competitive split decision. But I think Rebecki ultimately will be the bigger, stronger, better grappler here and be able to beat Duncan by decision here. So, in this one, I have Rebecki via decision. Now to our main event, we have in the flyweight division, we got Taira versus we got Taira versus Hunyang's. I'm butchering this guy's name. He gonna lose anyway, but Taira versus Young Sung Park. Taira versus Young Sung Park. And how do I feel about this one right here is I'm going average confidence, Taira to beat Park. So average confidence, Taira to beat Park. I think Park's a solid guy, but I feel like when I look at a lot of his fights, even the fights that he wins, or the fights that he, not really his last fight he had nothing but success, but in probably another fight he fought a guy that wasn't that good. But a lot of his road fights, he was getting out grappled or getting taken down and controlled a lot, but then he was able to rally and find a submission. But Taira is on a whole different level of grappling than anyone he has ever fought and probably has ever trained with. And I think Taira is showing improvement in striking. I wouldn't be surprised if Taira outstrikes Park, but Park should on paper be the better striker. But I would not be surprised if Taira has been putting like heavy work into his striking and looks a lot better, especially after his last performance and saying that he needs that growth if he wants to be champion. So I would not be surprised if he actually outstrikes Park here. But what I see him doing is going back to his bread and butter and being able to have a lot of grappling sets against Park and being able to put the stamp on Park, especially with Park coming in on short notice and Taira coming in with a lot to prove here and already was training for a fighter that would be, very hard stylistically to deal with, a guy that had, good grappling himself and had good takedown defense and much better striking than Park and has fought much better competition than Park. So this is a big step down in competition. Not to say that Park is bad, but this is a big step up for Park and a big step down for Taira. And I expect Taira to look the part, show that growth for the striking and set up creative takedowns or creative entries, get the takedown, and really dominate Park in the grappling department. And I see him submitting Park via second round submission. So in this one, I got Taira via second round submission. And so that concludes my fight predictions for the 4-card fights for UFC Fight Night, Taira versus Park. And as always, thanks for watching. Peace.